Welcome everyone to another episode of Fake Nerds Watch, where we are talking about the HBO hit series. Is it a hit? I think it's already a hit. It's Lovecraft Country.
Definitely a hit.
Episode 4, A History of Violence. I am joined, of course, with Ryan Eliopoulos.
Hello, it's me.
And over the interwebs, Brandon T. McClure.
Hello.
And we're here to deep dive into this brand new episode. But before we do, I just want to really quickly add some anecdotes because last time when we talked about episode 3, I had not listened to the official podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I have now listened to that and allow me to bring up a couple of things. Letty was designed in the writer's room as a stand-in representation for Dracula as a resurrected figure. She is performing humanity because she has not found it again after her resurrection. They were going for a very specific angle on Stoker's Dracula writings. And that's why Dracula, the book, was referenced so heavily in the episode as well.
All right.
A lot of the episode is designed to be focused on her story of struggling to be a living person again.
Mm-hmm.
The sex scene is a piece of that puzzle to grasp at the living, part of the reason why she needs it, to try and bring life back into herself.
That makes sense.
And they talked for a very long time. And I highly recommend these episodes because I'm doing a pale imitation, quick cliff notes of what they do.
Are they an hour long?
They're about 50 minutes.
Okay.
The way the goat slitting happens is representative of something that is conventionally usually turned demonic, for a more Christian and white audience, but is distilled down from a place of protection and connection to spirituality that comes from Africa and even before. So they're using those things that are normally repurposed as something wrong to show that it is something powerful and meant to be connected and protecting them.
I think of like Drag Me to Hell. And like
right.
that's how you connect to the dead, but here it's like it's the opposite. It's like it's a helpful thing.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so they talked for a while about how much they enjoyed having this, like we kind of alluded to like the black magic versus the Lovecraft magic, but being able to use that as a power of saying, you know, you misunderstand this and we can use it against you.
Yes.
Which kind of comes up in this episode as well.
It does. In a fun little way, yeah.
So those were just some of the fun anecdotes, again, like worth listening to the whole thing, but just those were some notes.
Yes. Yeah. So why don't we start going into this episode, Mr. Plotman?
Well, let's first just first impressions.
Hey,
how you guys feeling?
This show's still good. This was the Indiana Jones episode. The tone was so much more fun and adventurous, and the music, like this whole episode felt like different than the other episodes, like on purpose. And again, going with like the anthology while still being part of the story, like this felt almost like a different show. With how fun and different it was being while still being Lovecraft Country. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite episode yet.
Mm-hmm.
This one really kind of hit all my buttons. You know, I love adventure stories, and to see these three go on this really crazy adventure, and especially like how it ends, where it ends. We'll get there, but I this is my favorite episode so far.
I really appreciated a lot about this episode. I really want to watch it again because right now I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I think the last one might be, but I'm definitely I'm feeling the vibe. I just I feel like not more plot stuff happened, but a lot more subtle character stuff happened in this episode. I feel like I'd need to watch it again to really get all of it.
It wasn't as dense as the previess episodes.
They talk about it in the official podcast that like there's a lot of even though the tone they admit is lighter in this episode, there's a lot of under the surface character drama stuff that's really heavy and going on amongst them. That's arguably heavier than some of the stuff since episode 1.
Yeah.
Before we go into it beat by beat, I'm actually going to talk about the podcast notes from this episode because there's some things that I kind of want us to just have in our minds as we're going through it because I think they articulate a lot of points really well. The History of Violence title is chosen for a lot of reasons, but one of the big ones that they did in the writer's room is that it's meant to be an allusion to Black parenting. The hosts of the podcast are Black, and they talk about how Black parenting, at a certain point, you kind of accept a lot of things as like, they make an analogy about how that is them, the parents trying to rob you of hope in a loving way.
Okay.
And it takes a long time for you to recognize that what you just pass off as that's parenting in a Black community is also abuse.
Like they can't get away from the struggle.
And this is an extreme focal point of like Montrose, is what this is about in this episode. And that was a really important thing that they wanted to come about. Like one of the writer from the writer's room admits that she still, and even as they were doing the episode, struggled to accept that what they were talking about was abuse, because she would constantly be defending it as, you know, well, that's parenting, and then having to recognize that it's worse than that. There's also a lot that they talk about in the sense of it's referencing a poem where there's a thematic question in this episode of at what point does using the master's tools corrupt us for Black people, and abusive parenting being that kind of thing, trying to force down the child to accommodate to man's world rather than fostering them to be something else inside of it, be themselves inside of it. And so that was a lot of the conversations that were going on. Really fun anecdote here. The writer, she talks about how if you ask any writer from the writer's room of Lovecraft Country what the most contested thing was in the writer's room, they would all agree it's the deleted Coke scene from this episode, which occurred between Diana and Montrose. Diana, Hippolyta's daughter, was going to steal a Coke from a store, and Montrose was going to catch her. She was going to play it off that she had been sold it, and they had a huge debate about whether or not Montrose should slap the Coke can out of her hand or slap her in the face. And this was a massive, and then like how the other characters would respond to Montrose doing it. And this was a long debate between them, because a lot of them found themselves saying that slapping the Coke can out of her hand wasn't violent enough. Really interesting anecdote to know about. Just
going by that character, like slapping her might be the thing he would do,
right? And that's a lot of like where they were in the writing room fighting about like, but how far are we pushing the character too much into like really having to hate him?
I think
how much are we representing what it's really like in a Black family, and having to tread that line? And that's why it was such a contested thing, but a really cool thing to know about.
I think we get a feeling on Montrose by the end of the episode anyway, so I don't think we would even need that.
The other thing that I thought was, go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, can I speak on Montrose real quickly?
Absolutely.
Before we get too much into the plot. I found his inclusion to be really fun in an interesting way.
I didn't even think about it when I was watching the episode. It was when I was listening to the podcast that I kind of realized this is Montrose's episode, even if everything isn't actually focusing on him. Everything is focusing on the effects of him.
Because he's the knowledgeable one. Like, he's the one with the answers in this episode.
Right. I did really want to bring a note to this. A decent chunk of the podcast is dedicated to the fact that there is a character who is Two-Spirited introduced into the episode, obviously, that can be read as intersex.
Yes.
And that the writer admits that it is hard to grapple with the idea of fear that this plays as queerphobic, and that they don't want it to, but they also have to accept that, you know what, if it does, that's the case. That's the truth. And I'd rather admit publicly that that's what's up. And then that those boundaries are meant to be pushed back against. So if we didn't do it well enough, then we need to know that too.
I did see,
which I think is super, super respectful.
Yeah. I did see on Twitter, some people felt that it didn't handle that well. I'm not the person to whether that's true or not.
Right.
I think for like what the story's trying to do, like I get it why they did it that way.
Sure.
But it's totally understandable why that could make someone mad. Like I get it.
Yeah, a lot of the conversation came around to like talking about how introducing an intersex character in a way that has never really happened on television in such a major, very out way. And then very quickly taking them out, like we'll get into it later in the episode, but taking them out can't totally understood how like that can feel aggressive, and they encourage, like I thought it was really cool that she's on the podcast encouraging, like if it offends, I want them to speak out. I want them to push back. That's things that should be pushed back against, because even if we thought we were doing it in the most like, you know, attention paid way, it doesn't matter if it's still hurt.
That's true.
And I thought that was really, really cool.
Well, it's like it's like that Louis C.K. quote that Ryan likes, and I like it too. The idea that like you don't get to tell someone that you didn't hurt them.
Right. Exactly. It's very much in that same vein. And they talked about like we know on some level it's a discussion they knew on some level it's a discussion that they had that Montrose doing it should feel queerphobic about Montrose. They want it to feel that way, but they don't want it to feel alienating as a show. But it's hard to, you know, especially when you're not that identity, realize without those experiences, where the line is. Letty had just they just made a really good note about Letty having just discovered her deeper sense of community through a type of community, Black love, in the previous episode. That's part of what brought her back to life, really emphasizing the fact that what she had been doing before was a house where her friends and her artist friends and whatever were staying, and then it actually was something for the community. And right when she's embracing this positivity of being actually a part of something, Atticus is packing up to leave.
Bobo is mentioned in this episode, right? Diana's friend. Okay, so we didn't mention this last week. In the seance, when the seance is happening, there's a kid named Bobo, and that's a kid named Emmett Till, and that's a real life kid who took a trip to Mississippi and was murdered by white people in the 1950s. So that's like a historical like event in Mississippi in the 50s that this happened to this 8-year-old kid or whatever. But in the seance scene, he says, "Am I going to have a good trip?" And the thing points to no. Yeah. And that's like, man, that's a more real, historical, accurate shit that's going on in this, much like Watchmen. Wow. Even Tulsa's brought up in this show too.
Right. That didn't come up in the podcast.
That's surprising. I didn't bring that up because like that's supposed to be.
They talk about so many when it's only a 50-minute podcast and they hit Lart on like really big and intense subjects, and they dive really deep on them for about 20 minutes. That's usually how
but it's like a little historical cameo almost in a way that I thought was interesting.
And then just lastly, some ideas that they shared about the episode that I just want us to think about is the only goal in activism and using the master's tools to replace the colonizer, because it needs to be more, and Black resistance demands joy in spite of horror. Yeah. Which are just things I kind of want us to keep in the back of the mind. That's how they wrapped up the episode. I thought it was pretty good.
Like power corrupts, like what is it like?
Power corrupts absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes, it's like even if like they're trying to use like the tools of their masters, like they might become the villains trying to do that. Like that's something that's hard to talk about, I guess. That's like this whole Black Panthers thing, right?
Right.
Killmonger.
Yeah, exactly. So those were just that's all I'm going to really say about the official podcast. I think again, like, if you were interested, like check it out because they talk about it much better than I can. But I do want to introduce some of those concepts.
Laying out the facts.
So let's dive in.
Do we start with Montrose?
We do. We start with cool. Montrose.
My memory's bad.
Having a whole mess of drunk breakdown over that book.
He's watching the news and it's talking about the Cold War. The Cold War.
I think he's just listening to the radio.
Oh, he's listening to the radio. Yeah, okay, yeah. But it's about like the Soviets.
Yes, it's about the Red Scare.
I didn't realize the Cold War lasted over 50 years. That's crazy. Like I knew it was a long time, but like man, right after World War II, up until like that shit sucked, dude.
When I was in high school, I wrongly called it the boring period of history.
The most tension-filled nonsense. Oh my god, it's awful. But yeah, Montrose is just he's having a time. He lost his brother.
He's hearing his voice.
He's hearing his voice. He's hearing a bunch of different stuff. He's like reliving the last last couple of days. Obviously drinking. He has like panic attacks or something
something like that.
He's just going through a lot of shit. And I don't remember where I go from there, but I just remember he's not having it.
Well, he has the book.
That's right.
Yeah, he has the book. I think in a lot of ways, Montrose has never known how to grieve.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what's spilling out. Is Montrose doesn't strike me as a person much in tune with his emotions.
No. So I wonder if he feels some sort of guilt too. I'm like sure. bringing his brother into this.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
His brother. We find out that his brother had given him the book, and he's reading the first page of that book, which is some weird Adam and Eve story.
Yeah. So very, very. Because I also watched. I watched the video. Like I follow these people who do this thing. It's GameSpot. They had these two guys. They do weekly shows about it. But I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
About the book, about the Adam and Eve story?
Yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah. So it's very misogynistic. It's literally about like men are great, women suck, women are the worst. And we see even more of that later with like a cop talking to Christina.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that whole book, like their whole thing is about being white and powerful and being a man. And like that's what the book is too. And it's just like, oh, it's all wrapped up in racism and misogyny and just gross stuff. And it's like again, it's like it goes hand in hand with Lovecraft shit, which is very funny. That is how the religion is built.
Well, I mean, that's the Bible also. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that Eve is the one that expelled them from paradise.
Yeah.
And these people base their entire order on how Eve was a dumb bee.
Yeah. Like Eve screwed it up for all the dudes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank Eve.
And Christina seems very much to believe that is a misunderstood and very Christianized interpretation of what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So Montrose burnt the book, and after that we go to Christina with some contemporary music, and she's heading straight for Letty.
Bitch better have my money.
Yeah.
That's a great Rihanna song. That's all. That's what we call a hot bop.
There was a lot of contemporary music in this episode. All used to, I think, great effect.
Yeah.
Christina goes to talk to Letty at the house. In fact, she goes to just directly enter the house, but she can't because the goat blood mark is still on the doorway.
Yo, she got cabin in the woods.
And she can't go through it, which Letty recognizes immediately, which I thought was a super cool thing that we're acknowledging that, like, these powers are not, one is not greater than the other. These are equal protection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But even like almost different though, which is super rad.
Right.
Again, like talking about
they're
different
totally
magics.
Different ideologies, and they both are valid and exist.
Like actual with witchcraft and like cosmic Lovecraft stuff exists at the same time. It's great.
It's like the DC Comics universe for magic. Like John Constantine does not have the same magic as Zatanna.
Yeah, or like Dr. Fate or something like that.
They all have different magical powers. They all stem from a different magical source.
Even Marvel, the X-Men now have their own mutant magic. That's what Excalibur is all about. It's about mutants having their own source of magic from Otherworld, which is a King Arthur realm or whatever. But yeah, I think incorporating all this sci-fi fantasy shit into one like period piece is so cool. It works really well. You'd think it'd be too much, but with the right creative team, like it balances very well.
Yeah, it is a lot. Like they are throwing everything in the kitchen sink that you would see from a genre show. A genre show generally would have like one of these elements.
Yeah,
but this is like, nope. Hey, some more. Want some more? Cool.
It trusts the audience. Like, hey, like you guys are smart. You can keep up with it.
Especially because there's a word in this show when Christina asks about a time machine.
Oh, that's when I was like, oh, word?
Yeah, me too. I was like, excuse me.
Oh, we're doing that? Okay.
We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that is of particular note. Christina's there because she wants the pages, which she believes, apparently rightly so, that they are accessible through the house, we'll say. And she also is looking for the solar system model that Hippolyta found and took.
Yeah, I didn't know she took it.
No one did until this episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
Letty doesn't know it.
No, Letty never even saw it.
Yeah.
No one, I think, saw it except for Hippolyta.
I think also Letty didn't know that Christina gave her the money.
No, this is when she finds
This is when she finds
This is when she finds all that out, and that Atticus knew, and that Atticus almost shot her because she tells her flat out that he came to kill her, and that he's being reckless and stupid.
Oh, that's when she goes to meet him at the library?
Yeah.
Is that next?
Well, almost.
Okay.
Yeah, Letty... Christina tries to kind of relate to Letty on a woman level.
Yeah.
About how, like, Atticus might have the blood, but he's still a man.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of comments. We go because of the solar system. You mentioned to Hippolyta talking on the phone to her father.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
About it. And the fact that it's not normal.
It's not our solar system.
Some about twin sons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Star Wars.
And she's trying to figure it out, but she can't get it to work because it appears it needs some kind of key.
Locking key.
Yeah.
And it's a locking key crossover we never thought we wanted.
Yeah. And then Letty does get to Atticus at the library, which was a super cool scene.
Honestly, like, maybe my favorite scene just because how silly and, like, they're whispering and there's that kid who just wants to rejourney to the center of the earth. Shh.
Yeah.
And it's not often you actually get, like, an entire whisper scene. Like, you really never get a whole whisper scene. And you can actually hear what they're saying, so you don't have to turn the TV up. I just thought it was really funny. There's arguing, this little kid's there.
Well, it kind of goes to what we talk about with the first 3 episodes, how the show likes to play a lot with tone. It's a very tense scene for Atticus and Letty, and yet there's a little kid going like, shh.
Yeah.
And constantly, when he like slams down the book and gets up.
Yeah. All the books that Atticus was reading also happened to be checked out before by his dad. So that's super funny that, oh, you're more like your dad than you think, man. Like, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, over and over he finds Montrose his name listed. Letty
Montrose has done this before.
Yeah, and Letty's ready to be a lot more proactive than he is about all this, which leads to Montrose and Letty meeting up at the bar and Atticus joining them. And Letty calling Montrose out for not helping his son out, not giving him the answers that he knows he's looking for when he has them.
Yeah.
Montrose let slip that there are 34 lodges.
Yes.
And this is not information. This is not information we've been privy to before.
That's like a lot of lodges. That's like too many.
Because we've already got one lodge on our tail. Do you want the other 34? And you're like, excuse me?
Right.
The Black Lodge from Twin Peaks is one of them.
I keep thinking about it whenever we say lodge. I'm not going to lie. So Atticus is pretty fed up, doesn't really want to deal with his dad, and Letty calls him an asshole and is going to walk out, but Montrose says that he might know where the vault is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Christina, in probably one of my favorite moments of the episode, is playing hide and seek with a bunch of children.
Oh,
who call her out for playing it wrong. And they're like, have you never played this before? And she's like, no, this is my first time.
She's having a great time.
I thought that was an awesome scene.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. There was Christina, the actress playing Christina, is capable of a very sincere wonder when she wants to.
Do you think she's an alien or something?
No.
Do you think she's just a human being? I don't
think she's just a human being, but I don't think she's an alien.
I just don't. There's just something.
You already know I have a theory that I'm going to bring up later.
There's just something about her and William that's just like, oh, you guys are wearing skin suits, right? Like, it just doesn't feel real. Do you feel that way, Brandon, or are they just people?
I have a theory about them that I will bring up in the right time.
I bet we have.
I bet it's the same theory. It's a good theory.
So she gets interrupted by some cops who take her somewhere else, further away, where a captain is living in a rather well-furnished place.
Yeah.
Not quite matching your typical cop captain. We find out that he's at least associated with a lodge, but he's not a member.
So this is also the episode that they got serious Watchmen vibes. The flashback episode in Watchmen with the Cyclops.
Yeah.
I got serious vibes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's very much directly dealing with
racist
white cops running a system of racism
around the same
for
time,
sure, and purposely, because we know there's someone in that captain's closet.
Yeah,
and
man.
if I were to take a wild guess, it's a black guy.
Man, that's also crazy that like there's just a dude screaming in there, and then like we just never see anything about it. We just know they're there.
Right.
That's horrifying.
Oh,
that's when the cop also
the
says,
captain tells her off and says, he might not be part of the order, but neither is she.
Because
there's
C-word.
no C words allowed.
No C words.
Which really furthers my idea that Christina truly thinks that all the men who try to associate with this order are stupid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolute morons.
In her defense, they kind of are so far.
They are.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Montrose and Letty and Atticus
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice
are on their way to a museum for a visit.
Don't they have a friend with them, though?
They do. They have Hippolyta and Diana, who they have to bring along because Montrose is like, what do you want me to do? It's her car. So they have to...
Montrose has a line. Montrose has a line that I love. He just walks in the frame and goes, this isn't my fault.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what? And Hippolyta's there. It's like with bags. I'm like, okay, we're ready to go.
Right. And so they're doing a very friendly museum trip for Hippolyta's sake.
Yeah.
But before they can pull out of the driveway, Tree wants a ride along. He wants to save on the bus fare because he's got dental work in Boston.
I'm going to Boston. Help me out.
And Montrose is like, I didn't tell him. Hippolyta insists that he comes along.
She knows something's up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we know she knows something's up.
Interestingly about Hippolyta, she is framed differently in this episode than she was in the last.
Go ahead.
She's not framed menacing.
Yeah, I think. Well, she's probably gonna she's trying to find out what's going on. So instead of being like mean about it, like might as well be nice about it. That's probably the better way to figure shit out instead of just being antagonistic.
Well, I don't feel like she was deliberately being antagonistic in like an evil way in the last episode, but the show was kind of framing her in a villainous way.
Yeah.
And here it's definitely not being framed. She's definitely not being framed in the same way.
I wouldn't even say villainous, but I would simply just say antagonistic. And it's because she has a lot of aggression towards Atticus for reminding her of George, but also to Atticus and Montrose for not feeling like they're not telling her everything, keeping something from her. And I agree with Ryan that she's basically now starting to play nice, hoping that she'll get answers. And she
we'll find out later.
Plays nice until it does get a little more menacing at the end.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ruby is trying to apply for the job at the big fancy store,
like the Macy's.
But when she goes in, she finds another colored girl is already working there.
Yeah.
And Ruby is disheartened because she already understands that only one colored girl is ever going to get a job there at a time.
Yeah, and it's sad because like she pretends to be shopping, and then the girl comes up to her and she's like, "Oh, do you shop here often?" And Ruby's like, "No, not often." Did you just start? She's like, "Yeah, I started yesterday. I just applied on a whim, and look at that, I got it. Oh shucks." Right. And that just Ruby's like, "Oh man, that could have been me."
And Ruby's been doing this for years.
Yeah,
and
that's sad.
And she's not being given her chance. And she had so much confidence when she walked in there too. With God, I don't remember which song was playing for her.
I don't remember. She was looking fly. She had her confidence. Poor Ruby. She goes and gets a drink later.
In Boston, they get to the museum, which has an entire Titus Braithwaite wing.
Woo!
Yeah.
The racist wing.
And it's not newly renovated, but they know when it was put in there. It was after he came back from an expedition.
Right.
That's going to help them on their journey.
Yeah, 3 years later. So they're trying. Montrose has a meeting with the security guard. They're trying to get in to get access to their answers.
Got a guy on the inside.
Meanwhile, Seymour.
Seymour.
Or Tree gets called out by Letty for referring to them having taken a tussle around in the hay when they were in high school. And she directly calls him out. We get his the first mention of his real name, Seymour.
Seymour.
When he says, "Do you know why they call me Tree?" I was like, if it's not because you're tall, you need to shut up.
It's not because he's tall.
Nah, it's a penis joke.
It's a tree joke.
Most people have 2 legs. I got Tree. Yeah. Hippolyta is telling her daughter about the comet Hera's chariot.
Oh, this is awesome.
In a projection room for stars that looks better than anything I ever saw, even in the 90s. Yes. And she explains that she got to name the comet, but nobody cares. She doesn't get any credit for it.
Yeah.
So Diana shouts it out into that entire auditorium.
My mama named this comet.
I thought that was a really nice scene.
Now they all know the truth too. That's what she said.
That was a really nice moment to have, knowing that there were moments like the Diana having the Coke can scene that was on the docket.
Yeah,
this kind of scene. I'm really glad that a scene like this got to stay in.
Yeah, like a positive scene.
Yeah, something that really just further informs on in a really warm way the relationship there, and still shows the racism. Christina goes home, and then William comes out of the house and beats up the men that were following her.
Yeah, so
we have the same theory, I'm assuming, that Christina and William are the
same person.
Because now, hold on, I amended this. I said the same thing right at this moment in the show. However, I amended it later, and I said, you know what? I'd even go so far as to admit that Christina and William are 2 different people, but they share the same body.
I'll accept that, but but after I saw this, I turned to Zara and I asked her, I was like, have we ever seen the 2 of them in the same room together?
No, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
We did the same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, that was very specific framing that Christina just walks in that house.
It's very
and then deliberate. William walks out, and I'm like, okay, so they're the same person, or they at least share the same body.
Yeah. That makes me think like they're definitely not regular peeps.
Right.
So like something like, I don't know if they're. I can't even guess. I don't know. We got Lovecraft involved. I have no idea what it could be. Anyway,
at this moment, I'm leaning towards that they are 2 separate identifying people that share a body.
Yeah.
It could be her spell that she created from the Book of Names.
I believe that's entirely possible. I still, at this moment, would lean towards, I think William does have his own identity. That's not just Christina as a man.
Sure.
I think William has but I haven't watched the episode since I thought of this.
Yeah.
But I do think, looking back, that William, and certainly in the way he interacts with Ruby, William has a slightly different presence in the way he engages with people than Christina does. And I think that may be an indication of them actually being two separate souls.
Like a Jekyll and Hyde, but not like one's worse than the other. Just like they share the same. It's two personalities in one body.
Yeah, exactly. But one way or another, same body.
Yeah.
Either way,
they're connected.
We're in agreement on that probably being the case.
Yes.
And he beats up some cops.
Which is interesting, and it'll be interesting if we're correct and how that plays out, because that is a slightly different kind of representation for possible intersex or at least gender non-binariness.
Yeah,
that could be representative in the show at the same time that the other character was introduced.
His scars,
just this concept appearing. His
scars are very interesting too.
Yo, man, those are devil horns.
Yeah.
Those are straight up devil horns.
So meanwhile, light games.
I love it.
At the museum.
Wait, Sparkz, real quickly.
To unlock their puzzle, they Indiana Jones it.
Real quickly, Sparkz, I want to say, in the edit, can you please, one of these meanwhiles, plug in the Super Friends meanwhile?
I'll try to remember. Don't bet on it. So they use flashlights to help them uncover a tunnel path.
Yes.
Down deep into the museum.
Man, this is my shit. This is my shit. When they're like, the moonlight's got to hit this spot right, that hits this spot, and that hits that, and that's the trick. I was like, yeah.
This is your premium show, high budget, The Librarians episode.
There you go.
1 1,000,000%.
Yeah. They need Letty to get the map, which she smashes the exhibit. To Montrose saying, I said we'd leave it alone.
Bro, like that map, like old parchment can like deteriorate. Like again, Letty just is like a do first, think later person, because like that map could have just ripped in her hands.
Yeah.
And like she just grabs it and throws it. I'm like, that's good for you. All right.
We skipped over something that Seymour says.
Mm-hmm.
Seymour makes a mention that the bartender at the bar that Montrose frequents and Montrose are closer than we've been led to believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Implying that there is some sort of relationship there.
Sure.
I think that's very fascinating.
It's just not clear what that relationship is.
Yeah.
I think Tree is definitely implying that it's a sexual relationship of some kind.
We'll get at it towards the end, but there is also some maybe some we'll get to it later. I don't want to talk about it now. Sure, but yeah, there's some stuff with Montrose that is but maybe more there than what we think. Yeah.
So they head down into these tunnels, Montrose struggling to get down that rope. And they make a decision about a path to take.
Oh yeah, it's a smart path. Yeah.
Man, I hope you guys are right about this.
Because they only have a limited amount of time.
Yeah. Is this because water's rising? Are we at that point yet? Not yet.
No, they only
just have a limited amount of time because like when the library,
because the security guard
guy.
Because
when the security guard.
That's right. Okay.
Ruby is jamming out on her guitar, and nobody really cares for her music, and she's fed up. So she says, "Screw you," and she goes. And William decides to come up and buy her a drink. William, who had earlier in the evening said, "I have a date," so this is a targeted moment.
That's a targeted date.
This is not at all happens.
Also, like Ruby sits down, there's already a drink there for her, and she's like, "I don't have any money for a drink," and he's like, "That white boy bought it for you." And then he's like, "Hello," and I'm like, "Oh my God, William, what do you? Oh no!"
This moment just starts with William, like the introduction of William coming and talking to her before it jumps back to the museum.
Yeah.
But I actually just want to stay with the Ruby and William moment for a bit. So later on, it would cut back to them, and what happens is that Ruby's explaining the situation of what her skin color has done to her, why she can't get a job at this store and why things are so hard for her in comparison. And in the midst of that, William makes a comment about you should apply anyway. You never know what'll happen. And this is a very clear sense of a toxic positivity.
Yeah.
And William not being able to
Recognize.
just listen and recognize that he doesn't know better. William, Christina, what have you. Which I thought they played really, really well. But ultimately, William does hear her. And for that, he ultimately gets to bang her.
Yes.
Later in the episode.
And it's funny because it's almost like it does that like cut of like, I'm not sleeping with you.
No, it's not going to happen. Stop
And then
looking at me like that. It's not.
Door
There it
busts
is.
open. They're making it out. I'm like, oh, that's
Right.
a good tonal cut. I like it.
At first, I thought that William was doing it to get into the house so that he could, to be invited into the house so that he could.
Oh, Ruby's not at that house anymore.
That's what I noticed. It was like, oh, that's not the same house.
Right. No,
I had
there's
no
something.
idea.
There's something else afoot.
Yeah.
I think some kind of monster baby, maybe.
No, man, I don't think that. So that evil monster baby we saw in like episode 1 or 2, whatever. I don't think that's gonna be the last baby we see. I'm just saying.
The show
I don't
got.
think so either.
So I think we're gonna see a spooky monster baby come out of Ruby.
You know, speaking of monsters, I'm actually surprised at how little monsters we've seen in the show.
I'm glad they're used sparingly.
I after the
I
first
don't mean
episode,
it. I don't mean it as a negative. I'm just
No,
surprised.
yeah.
After like the first like 1 or 2 episodes, I just wasn't sure what the show was going to be anymore, and especially after like the next 2, I'm just like, well, this one was an Indiana Jones episode, and the last one was a ghost episode, so like the next one could be either in outer space. Like I literally don't know.
I'm very grateful for it because I think there's a common misconception by people who don't spend much time with Lovecraft stories.
There's not a lot of monsters.
that the things he's famous for are like creepy monsters, scary looking, hard to describe creatures.
That is the common Lovecraft.
This is what
stuff.
I mean.
Yeah.
So like that's a very commonplace understanding, and I'm grateful that the show understands that there's far more to Lovecraft that is about psychology and fear.
There's a lot of it in this stuff
And-
because he deals with time and space in a way, especially
Yes.
with the architecture of this entire mausoleum or whatever, or like a museum and the catacombs. Like that can't be real. Like the stuff we see later, like the geometry does not fit with the chasms. And everything.
We'll get to it, but the plank that deteriorates,
That's never
itself,
ending?
Yeah, that almost
Yeah.
appears never ending and then deteriorates itself, but stays completely solid.
Yeah.
That is very true to Lovecraft's sense of style. What people were drawn to so much about his writing wasn't just the creatures, but things like that. And I'm very glad that the show doesn't try to over monsterify it.
I agree.
But embraces all those sides of it. So that plays out the Ruby and Williams stuff. We'll have to see how that's going to go further into the episodes.
They're banging, but she rips his shirt, or he takes
We
his
talked
shirt
about
off.
the bull
yeah,
horns,
and
yeah.
it looks like it straight looks like a demon face, like on his chest, and just like Ruby's fine
it's
with it.
it's a kind of scar tattoo.
Yeah, it's a cool scar tattoo.
Much like the marks on Killmonger.
Oh,
Black
yeah.
Panther.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how all that. I'm glad Ruby's going to be involved, but I maybe don't want bad things to happen to her, and I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like there can be something wholesomely trustworthy about what's
She's
going
on
on.
she is on a path that will likely lead her into direct conflict with our quote unquote heroes.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely going to see more of her based on that next episode preview. So we'll talk about that a little later. The trio discovering going through the tunnels comes out to an opening in the dark with the plank, as we were describing before. Dark that is very thick dark that just goes on and on.
So cool.
And they need to cross, so they start tying a rope to each other so that they're able to do it. And Letty, who's going to go first, is freaking out about it. So Montrose it makes a very strong, resolute explanation of like his ancestors being slaves and how they had to use knots throughout their lives to escape. And you can trust that a special knot passed down through generation after generation is going to hold. And later, as she is out on the plank, Atticus reveals that their ancestors were never slaves.
The Freemans were never slaves. She's out there, isn't she?
Yeah.
Man, you know how to get them going. I'll tell you that.
Which was a pretty
Montrose. This is what I'm talking about. Like Montrose ended up being a pretty fun presence to the group dynamic that I didn't expect.
Yeah, even at the same time, challenging Atticus, and by challenging Atticus, challenging that relationship and how Montrose has treated it. Because, like, regardless of the fact of if George is biologically Atticus's father, Montrose is the man who raised him. And we see some of that because we see a lot of Atticus's anger in this episode. We see a lot of it come out. And that is kind of the history of violence stuff playing out, is that what Montrose has done plays out in Atticus. He has that same rage that Montrose has thrown at him.
Yeah.
But at the moment they're crossing a plank and a pendulum is swinging, so they have to undo the rope and jump through it. And then when it passes it, the plank starts disappearing from the other end.
So Montrose is still on the other side. And he's like, Tick, it's disappearing! And then Tick goes to investigate. He's like, you got to jump. He's like, you bet. And
he throws
a bag, and Atticus just like swats
immediately, like knocks it down, and he's like, "You better catch me!"
Yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah, there's a lot of comedy in this episode. Again, like last episode was about a bunch of ghosts, and this one's of Indiana Jones. It's so good.
This is actually a really good point that I love to say. Like, this is would you disagree that is a very dramatic, deep, dark show?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also funny.
Yeah.
You can be both.
You can be both.
And not to throw shade at a certain sect of fandom, but whenever people say like, "Oh, things can't be funny if they're dark and deep," it's like, no.
Oh yeah,
it's called tonal balance.
Yeah, I think another thing that they're very aware of in writing the show is that horror only works if there is fun and joy.
Relief.
And also, like they talked about on the podcast, Black resistance only resonates if you're allowed to show Black joy. It can't be all the rage. It can't be all the resistance 100% of the time. They have to be allowed to show enjoying life. They have to be allowed that freedom. And so I think those kind of things are important. Not that necessarily is totally exactly what's happening in this plank moment.
Yeah.
But I think they're very hyper aware of those things, and that, you know, the tension and the horror moments land better when you've been allowed to have high highs.
Yeah, even the music for this episode was different than the last ones. Like the funny moments even had like a dun 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 dun, like a whimsical kind of music to it. And then this one had like hardcore, like dark Indiana Jones, like, yo man, we're like in a big old crypt. And like I thought it all worked. Like the music's always good, but like this episode, everything felt different while still being the same show. And I applaud it. Because there's people just running across this board as it's disappearing, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
So the composers for the show are Laura Karpman and Raphael Sadiq.
They're doing a great
Raphael Sadiq is that's a really famous like actual musician, and he had a song in Luke Cage. That's crazy if it's the same Raphael Sadiq. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking up. He's done some great stuff.
Yeah, he had a great song in Luke Cage.
Yeah, I really praise a lot of moments where they put in these beats that are very much musically in tone with
it is the same person. Yes.
Cool.
With
that's awesome. They got like an actual musician to like help score the thing.
Classic horror film beats.
Yeah.
Like they really sound like that. And I appreciate that a lot. So
they run across.
They're
the
running
board.
across. They all have to get past that pendulum, and the plank is disappearing faster and faster. So they get to the combination.
And then there's a Tomb Raider puzzle.
Right, which is the lock or the key is the combination that he read in the beginning of that book.
Yeah, like the gods is man, and the women are evil, and snakes and baloney stuff. Yeah.
And there's monsters, and Adam
of course,
killed monsters.
Yeah, Montrose has it all memorized because he read it like 1,000 times before burning it. Because man, if he weren't there, everyone would be dead. That's bad.
But he's the one who's able to open the door because of that. So they were able. I like his little thing. Did you see that jump, boy? Did you see me? I thought that was funny.
He's an old man. He's doing his best.
But this is where we see we see the tide.
Soon, yeah. Before that, they directly and immediately challenge Montrose for his knowledge. This is where it comes up. They learn that he read the book of Adam, that he got it from George, and that he then subsequently burnt it after reading it. And Atticus is furious with him for it.
Yeah.
And he's like, then why the heck are you out here helping us? And he's like, because you won't stop.
Yeah.
You just won't stop.
He recognizes that his son won't stop this stupid thing, so he'll help him enough. But also, he sabotages the mission as we see later on too.
Right.
But like he's like, I'll help you, but not enough to actually help you. And I'm like, man, why are you even here then? Like,
Montrose very much believes that he's protecting Atticus, that he's protecting the family, the group at large. At least that's the outward explanation of a
sounds
lot
like a
of
Thomas
actions.
Wayne, if you ask me.
That he's doing that, but he also recognizes that Atticus is determined, and so anytime Atticus wants to put himself in danger, he's trying to divert him from getting to the answers that will really put him at the greatest risk. At least that's Montrose's belief. This is when, the water has been coming up. There's a particularly strong moment where Montrose talks about Atticus potentially leaving a man behind because he's so fueled on his mission, and Atticus gets really angry and says, I never ever did that. I would never do that. You don't even know. Which
makes me think that has to do with Jamie Chung.
Yes.
Something because that situation, like, it triggered him so hard.
It did. There's a lot of war trauma between them that is happening. Letty finds a body that she says she thinks is one of the white boys that went missing.
One of her neighborhood.
And right around then, I'm sure we all went, oh, the elevator's right here.
Yep.
That is why the elevator went low in that previous episode.
Yes.
So here we are, and they're going to pop right the heck back up.
It's all
This is where Ryan, you're absolutely right. Like,
from Boston to Chicago ain't no problem.
There is no way the geography works no way.
Yeah.
So
tracks to me. Underground's just a straight line.
Yep.
So
don't
there
take
is
the wrong word at Albuquerque. You're good.
There is some crazy magical whatever happening that connects that museum entrance to this, but also leads me. So the museum entrance is the proper entrance. The house was built by whatever the ghost dude, and
Elias,
to find the pages afterwards.
I think so. Yeah.
Epstein. Sorry.
Epstein. Yeah.
Yeah. So the house was built afterwards, which is why there are two paths to this.
I think so. Yeah.
To this place.
It's all. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like an entire underground network of cities.
Where do those other tunnels go?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. There's a whole lot of other paths, and they go somewhere.
Exactly.
So there's network, probably in connections to a lot of these other lodges we know about.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So there's a lot at play here. When they come upon the elevator, Atticus wants to force Letty and Montrose to go up. He says, I'll handle the rest on my own. And Letty gets pissed, finally, because she's kind of been stomaching Atticus's behavior, but she calls him out for saying, Montrose was abducted. I died. Stop acting like this is only happening to you.
That's such a
You're
good
not the
line.
center of the universe.
Yeah.
Really gets at him, which is true. Atticus has been taking on a lot and ignoring what's at.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is he's got like classic hero syndrome, doesn't he? He's putting this whole thing on his shoulders to protect everyone else.
Well, it makes a ton of sense because what was the very first opening scene with Atticus is him talking about John Carter. He's living, whether it's scary or not, a John Carter story, which he's always dreamed of. He's never had the opportunity to. So this is adventure to him, even though it's scary, even though he wants to protect his loved ones. He has suddenly become someone that no Black person in his life has ever been able to be. So to his mindset, he's arriving to that hero's journey in a way that no one has ever been able to before in his community.
All right, I got it. Picture this: the ending of season 10. We zoom out. He's on Mars.
Season 10, bro. With the way the
episode
show's
10.
Going, that's like
Episode
2
10.
episodes. Yeah.
Episode 10 ends with him on Mars.
Cool. Oh my gosh,
Meeting
that'd
up
be
with
insane.
Ozymandias.
Ozymandias was a lot farther than
Mars.
I know. While Letty has had that aggression let out towards him, Atticus and Montrose have a moment where they, pretty much the first moment in the entire episode where they relate to each other, because Montrose actually opens up about his mom.
Oh yeah,
and makes comparisons to the way he loved her and the way that love worked between them, even in his rage, between him not seeing always what was in front of him with what Atticus is doing to Letty.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really sweet. It's pretty much the most sincere moment by a mile that we've ever had between Montrose and Atticus.
Is this like when he basically says like he's proud of him?
No, that's later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but this definitely opened the door for that. He saw something in the way that Atticus has been carrying himself, the way that Letty cares about him, that he felt like he had to speak to. Something that reminded him of the woman that we have every reason to believe Montrose truly loved.
Yeah.
Though she may have loved George more.
Oh. Monty.
They come upon a detached arm in a lock.
Oh yeah, the moment time.
And they pull it out. And I noticed right when they pulled it out that it has a ring on it.
Yep.
Very certain ring.
A golden ring.
Right. So Atticus takes out his ring that he got in episode 2 from Christina. And he puts it on and sticks it. I mean, I would too. It summoned my ancestor and saved my life and dropped a mansion on a whole bunch of bad white dudes. I'd save that ring.
Oh, yeah.
So he sticks his hand right in, and there's that like, oh, freak out moment. But then he's like, hold on, because it's just a DNA test to check his blood. And then
turns out he's 100%.
Once he's 100% of Titus's line, it drops a ladder for him, and we find a room of dead people. Of dead people that can not stand up or
not just
be positioned however they want.
Not just dead people. It's a boat.
Breastfeeding.
They're on a boat. It's a boat. I'm on a boat.
Right.
It is an underwater boat.
This is we learned later, but like this is a boat that's encompassed by magic because it's at the bottom of the ocean or wherever it is. However however
space works.
Yeah.
Somehow it is surrounded by water, and it is a boat, so like an old pirate ship-esque kind of.
And also under Chicago, just around the corner from Letty's house.
Yeah, it's one of Titus Braithwaite's old like exploring ships.
Yeah.
And like I'm still unsure. I guess you guys can fill me in. I'm still unsure about the people who are on there. Are they their inhabitants from whatever land that he went to?
Yeah, when he went frontiering.
When he colonized and brought happiness to the people, which just means being a bad white guy and probably murdering and pillaging,
right,
and taking them from their homes.
So his whole thing was, come with me and help me decipher the language of Adam.
Yes, because they could speak it.
Yes, and I'll take care of your people.
And
then once they saw what kind of person he was, she refused.
Yep.
They refused because it's non-gender identity necessarily. A very intersex character. They refused, and thus Titus killed all the others and forced them to be exiled there.
Yeah,
with them.
They're all just like mummified for like 500 years or something.
When I saw them, I knew something was going to happen with them. They were either going to get up or they were going to do something.
Yeah,
sure.
I did not expect what actually happened.
We just got a visitor from a dog. Sorry, hold on.
Hey, what are you doing up here?
Go, Luna.
Luna.
Beautiful baby. Good thing it's not live.
Okay, so
boat full of people, dead people.
The Montrose is the one that takes the pages, right?
That's a little later. They go to reach for the scroll, but before they even get to it, the body clutching that scroll starts coming in like CGI claymation to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that is our intersex character later referred to as being forced to be a siren. They are two-spirited man and woman at the same time.
That transformation was like way longer than I expected. It took a long time, which is like not a bad thing.
And they're just freaking out.
And it's just like, I don't know what's going on. This person's like forming in front of me.
Well, our three characters are sitting there going like, do we run? Do we stay? Do we see what's going on? And like you as the audience are kind of like, is it going to kill him? What's it going to do?
And then
they kind of just stunned, but they have a lovely chat.
Yes. Yeah. Although only one of them can understand what's going on.
Only Atticus can understand them and speak back, and that's where we learn the history with the relationship with Titus.
I forgot to write down the language, but the subtitles do name the language. It's not the language of Adam. It's
Arawak.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I can't tell you where that's from. I just know that's the video that I watched. That's what they said it was.
Mm-hmm.
So after they acknowledge that they don't believe, because Atticus apologizes for everything Titus did, but he's afraid for his people and he needs help. And the two-spirited character says that while they don't believe they are responsible for the sins of their ancestor, they don't know their soul. So they can't trust them.
We will not help you.
And Montrose says that there's no time to deal with this, so he takes the scroll, and then the whole water starts caving in, and Atticus insists that the Arawak character come with them.
Yes.
And grabs them and brings them with them.
The Arawak are a group of indigenous people of South America and the Caribbean.
There you go. So they plunge down into the water and head for the elevator, where the scroll gets drifted away, and Letty has to go swim after it very quickly.
I can't hold my breath that long.
Or they won't make it.
That's
And
very tense sequence.
and she's able to make it, and they get back into the elevator. And once they can breathe again, Atticus just full on pulls Letty in for that big bass, just
big old kiss,
romantic kiss, just make out hardcore.
Music's playing.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
And then our siren friend opens their mouth.
And then the Arawak breaks out an ear-piercing scream, which we later learn is because they were turned into a siren, so they could not speak. They were cursed by Titus. They could not speak and could not help anyone who has helped them escape.
That sucks on a character level, but on a story level, that's so rad.
Yeah, that's a terrible punishment. Anytime you talk, you make people's ears bleed.
And
if you leave,
yeah.
And Atticus had to punch them the heck out.
Yeah.
So that they could get to the surface. Okay.
Yeah.
Hippolyta and Diana are driving back to Chicago, and Diana asks, "How did they already get back to Chicago?" And Hippolyta is super suspicious now,
right?
Extremely unsure of how that's possible. And meanwhile, Diana.
Can you imagine that phone call? Can you imagine that phone call? Just like, hey, so we're home.
Right.
Wait, hold on. That's literally impossible.
That's going to be a hard one to watch.
That's going to be a hard jet plane. I don't know.
So Diana has George's map from when they were on their last trip.
With all the markings and everything. Yeah.
And Hippolyta looks at it. She sees markings for Devon County. She gets pissed. So it's implied that she's going to Devon County for answers.
She does a quick U-turn, brings her daughter with her, which is probably not a good idea.
Devon County... Forgive me. It's been a couple weeks. Devon County was where?
The Sundown. That was the Sundown.
The Sundown town. Gotcha.
On their way to Artem, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That is at least for Hippolyta's version of the story where she believes the sheriff killed George.
Right.
Who is also now dead.
Yes.
Both actually and to Hippolyta's knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
We get back to the trio, where we learn from Atticus that Titus had cursed them, just as we were talking about. Montrose takes the moment to compliment Atticus and say that his mom would have been proud of him. And they share that really sweet moment that feels kind of like something's building there. And then Montrose walks into the room.
Hold on. First of all, Atticus has like a really such a tender moment where they don't say he doesn't say anything. He just starts tearing up and does thanks, Dad. Okay. And walks out. Oh man, this is great. This is the way the episode ends, right?
He's got a whole plan. He's going to teach them English so that they can understand them.
They can decipher the Sons of Adam language. Yep.
So English and it's whole good stuff.
We got a new member of the team. They seem cool. I can't wait to understand what they're about. It's great. It's cool.
But Montrose comes up behind and slits the Arawak.
After saying, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
So... Why?
What do you guys think? What's the theory?
My gut tells me that he just wants to distance himself. He wants to distance Atticus from anything involving the Sons of Adam or the cult or anything. So even though he'll help him, he will still sabotage every way he can to stop him from really getting anywhere close to danger, which is the only way I guess he can protect him. Or I don't think he's involved in it anyway because he got captured at the beginning. I think it's just him being like a Thomas Wayne, just being like a really bad dad, like the worst possible.
So my theory is some sort of mind control. He's on their side.
I have seen that notion online too. Like he's somehow under control but doesn't know it. I don't think they've given me any pretenses to think that yet, so I'm not gonna. I don't initially think that, but I'm not against it. We've seen crazier shit.
Who the hell knows?
I'm a big fan of always looking at first frames to last frames, especially for television episodes. And I think Lovecraft Country has had some of the most poignant, where it really feels like each episode is bookended by a specific moment.
It does start with Montrose, yeah.
And this opening was Montrose having a whole freak out breakdown. And what we do know is he read that entire book. And if he read the entire book that they had of the Order of the Ancient Dawn and knew that these pages are even worse, hypothetically, even greater and more dangerous texts than what he read, and what he read freaked him out that much that he had to burn the book, then I would go back to this idea that Montrose believes this is protection because he has to prevent any way of them being exposed to any further of the deeper language of Adam.
I'm sure,
and what it really means.
Knowing that book, like reading that whole book, I'm sure there's so much more info that we just don't know. Like maybe the Arawaks are maybe he'd rather just not have any of them in the picture. Like that's just the best for Atticus. And like I'm sure Montrose thinks he's doing a good thing by murdering this person, but yeah, I think it is a situation of like he just wants to protect his son and get his son away from all this hell. Because like he knows what the hell's like, and like he doesn't want his son to be a part of it.
Yeah. I will say that I'm not convinced of mind control, because I don't know who would be mind controlling him that would want him to kill the Arawak.
Or who would even know the Arawak was there?
Because even if we were to stretch out and say it's Christina William, that would still not make a ton of sense, because they would find the Arawak useful from everything we've seen. So I feel like
because she's trying to find the pages so she can use them.
Right. So I feel like it far more plays into the idea that Montrose is doing it purely for protection purposes.
Like selfish reasons, like on his own front. Yeah.
Well,
selfish, but trying to be altruistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where we're at now, who the hell knows?
So we obviously all had the theory about Christina and William in this episode. It was only further solidified by the preview for the next week's episode, where there's a lot of Ruby and William and a lot of Ruby and Christina.
Yes. Oh yeah. Not in the same scene.
And not in the same sequences. So I'm convinced that those characters share a body, and I'm super stoked to see more of Ruby.
Yeah. I just hope she doesn't have a Cthulhu baby. I just like that's gonna be such a bummer. But like, yo, that dude had a skull tattoo. Come on, or skull scar.
Okay, just think about. Let me think about this. Let me run through a theory. Okay, she has a baby. Okay, she has a Cthulhu baby.
Okay.
It's got little tentacles. It's a little monster baby, but she doesn't want it to be used for evil, so she raises it to be good, and she names it Louise, Cthulhu Louise.
Oh, you can't. This isn't a Black Hammer crossover. I'm sorry.
Hey, I did it.
Cthulhu first, anyway.
Cthulhu is her dad.
Oh, okay, there you go. That's your comic book reference for the week, guys. That's a great name, Cthulhu, and I love it.
Yeah, I like that issue a lot.
I will see. I'm excited to have more Ruby in the show. I hope that what happens to her isn't too traumatizing.
I do too. I would like to
have tried to look at every angle about like William's interaction with her, and like maybe sex wasn't the goal.
No.
I'm like, I don't know how that could be possible.
Because he absolutely, like we talked about, like
it's a targeted thing.
Yeah. And I think he's targeting her because she's directly related to Letty and all that whole group. So like in indirect assault or indirect, getting to them. I don't know how.
That's the thing is like
I just don't know. Is he bad or good?
We just don't know what the advantage is for them.
Yeah, what they're
doing that,
or even what their goals are, besides getting like those pages.
Besides knowing the further, I mean, again, like I think we do have enough information. I think to confidently say Christina's goal is to ultimately understand the greater language of Adam.
Yeah,
and in doing so, totally undo all the stupidity she perceives of the lodges.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, here's what I wonder. I wonder if
I don't know that it goes further than
that. I wonder if Christina and William have the same motive, but because they're two different people, they go about it about different ways.
I've wondered that myself.
Like they're both doing the same thing.
I've wondered if Christina doesn't like that William.
Like it's good cop. I think it's like her
the way she
like good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Like William's like, oh, I'll just have a Cthulhu baby to expedite this, to make it go faster. And she's like, no, I'll use the people and do all this stuff. That'd be interesting if they even start fighting each other later on or something.
Right.
That could be fun. Lots of fun stuff.
Right. I really hope we get a scene where they can converse. If they are in fact in the same body, I would like to see them converse.
It's in the mirror. It's got to be in a mirror. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked to see how that whole relationship dynamic plays out. they stayed away from it on the official podcast, probably because like they have a writer on it, so they can't really hypothesize in a sincere way. So they have to just ignore that concept, I think. By the way, Shannon Houston is the name of the writer who I keep referencing when I say the writer who talks on that podcast. I wanted to look it up because I feel bad about just saying the writer from the show. Her name is Shannon Houston.
Good job, Shannon.
Yeah, I'm thinking back about it, and I'm like, I do believe this theory that Christina and William at least share a body, and I'm thinking about how Christina's help was always very direct. It's very open. Here's a ring. Here's the spell lifted. Blah, blah,
here's
blah.
money.
Here's a spell. Williams was, I'll just put the book out where he can see it and let him walk through it into the library and hope he uses it.
Or going to Ruby, who is a side character to the main group.
Correct. Yeah. So they seem to have different tactics, which does further my idea that they are separate people. But I do firmly believe that it is one vessel.
I'm curious. Yeah. Like, I'm just thinking of Doom Patrol. Is like, do they share it, or is it like they have to fight for control? Like, I'm just so curious. I can't hypothesize too much because like, watch it not even be true. Watch them both show up. We're like, wow, that was stupid. Wow, that'd be so funny.
I would have to give them credit. I would be like, that's a pretty strong fake out. If you think about it for long enough, it's like it makes a lot of good sense.
Yeah. Especially the way they frame it. Like, you guys are doing that on purpose.
Part of what made me even like, I know you didn't read all of the book, but you said Christina's character was a man.
Yeah. So I'm curious if, and I didn't read far enough ahead, which I'm glad I didn't, because that might spoil stuff.
Right.
So I'm wondering if the stuff in the book with William is the same, and then there's this new wrinkle that further changes it.
Right.
Which, because I don't even know what that can mean then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
So we'll have to see, but I'm super intrigued in the possibilities of that for sure. I'm glad that we were all on the same page very quickly. Idea that we're all like, I get this.
Yeah.
One person enters, another person leaves.
The whole thing is that like it very much does come down to the scene where we all kind of thought that, because you just don't frame it that way unless you're trying to tell us something about that relationship.
Unless it's just like extremely bad editing.
You purposefully show us that Christina and William aren't seen in the same space, because it's not William greets her at the door and walks out. It's Christina walks in the house, beat. William walks out.
Yeah.
That was very, very deliberate. And
I'm thinking
hard to interpret that as anything.
And I'm thinking of the other episodes. I'm like, they aren't in the same room together.
No, there never are. You never see them
together. There are
together.
scenes where they're so close together, but they're not.
I'll take
together.
it even a step further. You were never shown scenes where one of them is in one location and it cuts away and the other is in another location. It's not just that they're not even in the same place. They're never even shown at the same timeline to be in different locations.
Oh, man.
There's always a space gap between them.
Timelines.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't wait to find out, though.
But the other thing I wonder is, if this theory does prove out to be true, is how much Samuel would have known about it.
Ooh.
Because Samuel keeps Christina at a distance. So who did he think William was?
Oh, well, Samuel being dead, I
don't know that that'll ever be answered.
Exactly.
But I wonder about that, because I was like, it would all make a lot of sense to me. The relationship there, that he's not really aware of William could even be possible.
Yeah.
Because we never saw Samuel and William in the same space except once. And it's in the dinner.
Yeah. When
William's watching from the sidelines, and there's no way he's in that room without Samuel knowing he's in the room.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, it goes back to how someone says it. I know for a fact someone says it, but they are described as a couple. I wonder if Samuel only knows William as the boyfriend.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. Which
isn't real.
Yeah. I never see them together, but he's her boyfriend or whatever. Like
he's always around.
Samuel's like, I'm not at all suspicious of the fact that they look so similar.
Yeah. That's why I'm so interested about next episode, because so Ruby meets this white dude, and then a really crazy white girl.
Retracted, it makes a lot of sense when you are very white supremacy. You're like, you picked a perfect white specimen. He looks just like you. He looks just like me.
Oh, it's so gross. You're right.
You wouldn't double think it in that fucking context because you're so stupid.
Oh yeah.
The next episode looks awesome. I'm super stoked. I love Ruby. I love the actress playing Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Letty and Montrose and Atticus were all fantastic in this episode. But I'm super stoked to spend some time. I get the impression that the next episode is Ruby's episode. I think we're going to be with Ruby a lot.
Yeah.
We saw multiple shots of her with Christina and with William, and I think that means we're going to get a lot of her. Certainly we'll get other stuff too, but I think we're going to get a lot of focus on her.
Yeah.
I also, just based on the preview, would hazard a guess we're not going to find out what happens with Hippolyta for a whole episode. I don't even think we'll see her, or if we do, it'll be near the end.
I can believe that, but with how much they pack into these episodes, I wouldn't be surprised. If
They're dense.
It's for sure. I just think they're going to kind of keep us in waiting on that one until it becomes something more direct. In fact, I'd even venture a guess that it's possible we won't even see Hippolyta's encounters in Devon County. She'll just come back with new information.
Ooh, interesting.
But time will tell.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that does it.
Hell yeah, baby. That's some Lovecraft Country for
It's
you.
a fantastic episode. I really loved it.
Me too.
This is continues to be
I'm
gonna
watch this whole show again when the season's over for sure, and try and absorb up all these juicy details and relationships. And I'm waiting for Chung to show up again.
That'd be fun.
What episode? Give me an episode number.
7.
7? How many episodes are there?
10.
10? 7's good.
Yeah.
7's it sounds right. I'm gonna go 6 just to be different.
Just to be contradictory.
Because I don't want to
Yeah, I get you.
I'll say 8.
There you go.
You bastard.
What is that? Jeopardy rules? Price is Right rules? I don't know. Game show
Price is
rules.
Right rules. The closest wins.
There you
Okay, if that does it, then thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We got a lot of cool videos on this channel. A lot of cool different shows. We got our Basement Arcade show. New stuff coming from Basement Arcade soon. It's the spook season's coming up. Sure.
Oh, yes, that.
We were just talking about it before we started this.
Yeah.
We're definitely planning the best possible Halloween season we can, given a pandemic.
It's tough when we're all separated.
And amongst work schedules and myself being back in school. As far as like our other one, we're going to carve out some time for it. We just haven't yet.
Yeah.
We also have our Fake Nerd Book Club series, which we go through a comic book series volume by volume every episode. We are doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers now. The next episode will be 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Yes. The last episode was
no
4 and
1
5.
and 2, 3. Wait.
We did
No,
1. We did 1,
did
2, 3.
That's right.
It's 4 and 5.
That's
4
right.
and 5. So 4 and 5
And
coming soon. 4 and 5 coming soon. We got what we just said up now. We got other comics. Wasted Space. The 3rd volume of Wasted Space has just come out. You can check out our episode on it up now. We also have more shows like this. If you like culturally relevant shows, we did a Fake Nerds watch on Watchmen. Check
That's
that
just
out.
still great. Still good.
I just referenced that show in a paper that's going to get published later this year.
Oh, we've Montrose mentions Tulsa when he's burning the book. He says, "Smells like Tulsa,"
Yeah.
which means he might have been at the Tulsa or something. No, is he too old for that?
Oh, he would have been a kid.
No, he could have been.
Yeah, like 30 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, Montrose has been through some shit.
You could also just interpret that as like generational black pain, that anytime anyone visits Tulsa after that,
True.
you know what it smells like.
We also get a mention of Juneteenth. It's cool.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we also have our normal show every Sunday. We do the Fake Nerd podcast. Last week we did Mulan. We did a review of the new Disney Plus original Mulan. I guess that's what it's called now, right?
Hey, don't spend $30 on it.
Yeah.
This
We'll
week,
talk about it later.
This week, we don't 100% sure know what we're doing. Maybe DC Fandom. Who knows? We'll see what they do at this week's DC Fandom. But that's all you got. We got a lot of stuff on this channel. We got a lot of stuff around the internet. So check us out. All on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at Fake Nerd Podcast or www.fakenerdpodcast.com. You can find me at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Sparkz.
You can find me watching Citizen Kane for school at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
Hey, I like that movie a lot. Ryan?
You can find me at DJ Tony Snark everywhere. I also watched Citizen Kane when I was in film school for a little bit. It's a pretty good movie. I think
This is legitimately the third class that has brought it up. What happens when you have film studies classes is that a lot of them want to reference Citizen Kane. The funny thing is that this last one isn't my film studies class. It's one about the American dream, but we have to talk about Citizen Kane as he relates the idea of the American dream.
I mean, I get that.
No, I do too. It's just when
Considering
you've
it's
done
like-
2 film studies class where
Oh,
you
I
talk
get
about
it.
it for different reasons. It's like,
It's so funny.
I get it.
It's like you can't. Every film course, like, do you have to talk about Citizen Kane?
Right.
Like, there are other movies. That's
For
all right.
Like I said, I really like the Citizen Kane. I only saw the once for film school, but then I watched it recreationally later on in life. I think that made all the difference. I didn't have to watch the movie. I think the movie's pretty good.
It is very good.
But we're not talking about Citizen Kane. We're talking about Lovecraft Country. Ryan, you said where you're from, right?
DJ Tony Snark everywhere.
Okay, and on Twitch, and you can check him out.
If I Twitch it, you'll know it.
All right, guys. Until is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Until next week. Stay fake nerds.